Hi, this is Anthony from Maestro Music Centers in East Meadow, Long Island, and I have a little special treat for you today. I asked Dan Minervini, who works for Maestro Music Centers, who happens to be the youth representative for the American Theater Organ Society, to give us a little bit of a demo description about the theater organ presets that are built into the large Roland AT900, AT900 Platinum, AT800 models. So he's going to talk a little bit to you about the sounds and how he would use them and put them together from a real theater organist. So I'm introducing you to Dan Minervini.
So first I'll show you how to get to the theater organ presets. When you go to the home screen here, you'll see there's a button here called Quick Registration. When you hit that button, you'll come up with a bunch of categories here, and the way you get to those categories is you hit this red button up here where it says Theater Organ Now, and it'll bring up all the categories. Hit Theater Organ, and from there you'll see there are 3 pages of options. Generally, I try to set all the presets, all the sounds that I'm going to use into preset buttons, and the way I generally do that is that I set 1 through 4 or 1 through 5. I terrace it as an ensemble, and actually if you go through these presets, you have Theater P, Theater MF, Theater F, Theater FF, and if you set those in 1 through 4, you'll roughly get an ensemble. You might have to play around with it a little bit, but if I just go through that quickly. See that as I go through P through FF, the sound kind of builds. It stays within the same type of sound. It's a collection of voices put together, so it's an ensemble, but with each terrace of that ensemble, it builds a little bit, and it's effective for building up parts like I just did when you're trying to bring a piece to a climax. And there are other sounds in here too. We have tibia sounds, which are good for a lot of theater organ playing when you're trying to just do little slides like that. There's tibia 2. These are good for playing melody lines with single notes or even with chords if you want to go into it. There's tibias and voxes. Really pretty if you play in chords. Autumn colors, which is a chrysoglot on top under voxes on the bottom. So you can play the soft introduction with that. Tibias and voxes, again, good for playing in chords. Tibia, vox, sax, that's good for playing in chords, but also when you play the melody line in octaves. If you're playing a rhythmic section of a piece where it's kind of bouncing a little bit, bouncing is you're alternating pedal and chord in the left hand. So my left hand in that part was just. So if you do that with chords in the right hand, that's an effective use of tibia, vox, and sax. Below that you have tibia, tuba, and winds, which is good for playing single note melody lines. If you wanted to set that as your first preset in the ensemble, you can do that as well because it builds well into other ones. So. So you can see it works really well in single notes. Then I have lush theater, works well in single notes, lyrical theater, single notes, but it's a little bit deeper of a registration. If you want to sound, there's a registration on a theater organ where you try to approximate a cello, and this is somewhat like that. So it's just a little bit, it's a deeper sound that you can use to play with single notes really well. Pretty similar to tibia box sax, but it's used for single notes. Then we have Buzzin Xylophone. That's your novelty registration, the buzzy on top with a xylophone, with a cymbal in your pedal and a snare drum and piano in your left hand. So it's good for playing really bouncy, light pieces. And then we have our ensembles, these are P, MF through FF. Novelty mix, which is kind of similar to that buzzy registration. But it's used for the same type of playing, but this is more of a full organ registration with the piano on top. Theater tuba, which is, again, very good for single note playing. Ensemble idea I was talking before. Generally, when you're playing, you want to have as much contrast in your registration as possible. You want to make an arrangement that's interesting. So you don't want to be playing on one registration for an entire song. It'll wear your audience out. It's very boring to listen to. So if you incorporate the idea of playing in single notes and contrast that with playing in chords, and you use the terraced registrations to build in the climax of the piece, it can be pretty effective. So if I just play part of a piece just with the presets now, you can see how effective it can be. see how I used, if you followed the screen, you can see how I used a few of those principles. I terraced in a few parts with the theater P through FF, and at the end there, when I was talking about the contrast, I dropped all the way down from FF on this big suspended chord back to something really soft, and instead of playing in chords, for contrast, I played in single notes. And if you really play around with the sounds, if you really go through and you set them and you know where they are, you can really do a lot with them. You can, for example, if I wanted to do even a little more changing in there in that middle section, when I was playing, like I said, in chords with lyrical theater, I could have even changed that to tibia, vox, and sax halfway through. It's the same type of registration. You play it in big chords, and you play it with your left hand and right hand in rhythm. You can switch those out, and it'll give you more variety. The idea in having all these registrations is to use them for variety. And you'll notice I didn't use any of the novelty sounds. I was playing a ballad, and in ballads you don't want to play with novelty sounds. It's not appropriate for the style. So you just need to go through the sounds, listen to them, and just think. Every time you play with the registration, think, what type of song would I use that in? For example, if I wanted to use the buzzy sounds, I could incorporate that into an up-tempo piece like That's Entertainment. You can use it for that. Like I said, I wouldn't use those for ballads. I wouldn't use those for anything where you're trying to be sensitive. And another sound. These soft tibia sounds can also be built up. So you'll notice that in the beginning of that piece, I went back to tibias after building it up a little bit. Even between tibias 2 and tibia 1, if I wanted to use both of them, I could terrace those as well. So I could have played drop back a little bit. Something I forgot to mention before that's a nice feature on this Roland is the split. I'm used to playing on generally a 3-manual instrument, and you'll notice that this physically has 2. However, if you use the split, it'll give you the effect of playing on 3 manuals. So there were a few times in the piece where I used this glockenspiel at the end, and if you go through the sounds, some of them use the split, some of them don't, but it can be very effective, like in these big ensembles. Some of these big ensembles have a post horn in it, so you can do reed accents. And I actually have to go into a different category for that, so I hit the red button where it says theater organ. I go into movie and show, and then I believe it's under full organ. Up here you can do reed accents. So if I were playing, for example, you can use it just for a little accent like that if you just want to hit one part, or even if you want to just do a hit on top just to really push a driving piece. Just something like that, where you just want to do a little little hit on the top to accent it. This foot's very useful for things like that. So I hope you enjoyed our little tutorial on registration. And as Anthony said, we're at Maestro Music Centers in East Meadow, New York. Thank you.